Chapter 5 Bryce Brawk-Brawk-Brawk. Eggs scare me. Chickens too. And buddy, you can laugh at that all you want, but I'm being dead serious here. It started in the 6th grade with eggs. And a snake. And the Baker brothers. The Baker brothers' names are Matt and Mike. But even now I can't tell you which one's which. You never see one without the other. And even though they're not twins, they do look and sound pretty much the same, and they're both in Luneta's class. So maybe one of them got held back. Although I can't exactly see a teacher voluntarily having either of those maniacs 2 years in a row. Regardless, Matt and Mike are the ones who taught me that snakes eat eggs. And when I say they eat eggs, I'm talking they eat them raw and shell and whole. I probably would have gone my entire life without this little bit of reptilian trivia if it hadn't been for Luneta. Luneta had this major league thing for Skylar Brown, who lives about 3 blocks down. And every chance she got, she went down there to hang out while he practiced the drums. Well, boom boom whap. Why did I care, right? But then Skylar and Julie's brothers formed a band, which they named Mystery Piecer. When my mom heard about it, she completely wigged out. What kind of parents would allow their children to be in a band named Mystery Piecer? It's vile. It's disgusting. That's the whole point, Mom, Luneta tried to explain. It doesn't mean anything. It's just to get a rise out of old people. Are you calling me old, young lady? Because it's certainly getting a rise out of me. Luneta just shrugged, implying that my mom could draw her own conclusion. Go to your room. My mother snapped. For what? Luneta snapped back. I didn't say a thing. You know perfectly well what for. Now you go in there and adjust your attitude, young lady. So Luneta got another one of her teenage timeouts. And after that, anytime Luneta was 2 minutes late coming home for dinner, my mom would messenger me down to Skylar's house to drag her home. It might have been embarrassing for Luneta, but it was worse for me. I was still in elementary school. And the Mystery Piecer guys were in high school. They were ripe and ragged, racing power cars through the neighborhood, while I looked like I'd just gotten back from Sunday school. I'd get so nervous going down there that my voice would squeak when I'd tell Luneta it was time for dinner. It literally squeaked. But after a while, the band dropped Mystery from their name, and Piecer and each entourage got used to me showing up. And instead of glaring at me, they started saying stuff like, "Hey big brother, come on in. Hey Brycey boy, wanna jam?" This, then, is how I wound up in Skylar Brown's garage, surrounded by high school kids, watching a boa constrictor swallow eggs. Since I'd already seen it down a rat in the Baker brothers' bathroom, Piecer had lost at least some of the element of surprise. Plus, I picked up on the fact that they'd been saving this little show to break me out, and I really didn't want to give them the satisfaction. This wasn't easy, though, because watching a snake swallow an egg is actually much creepier than you might think. The boa opened its mouth to an enormous size, then just took the egg in and grubbed. We could see it roll down its throat. But then that wasn't all. After Snake had gulped down 3 eggs, Matt or Mike said, "So, Brycey boy, how's he gonna digest those?" I shrugged and tried not to squeak when I answered, "Stomach acid?" He shook his head and pretended to confide. "He needs a tree or a leg." He grinned at me. "Wanna volunteer yours?" I backed away a little. I could just see the monster I could just see that monster try to slow my leg whole as an after-egg chaser. No! He laughed and pointed at the boa slithering across the room. Too bad. He's going the other way. He's gonna use the piano instead. The piano? What kind of snake was this? How could my sister stand being in the same room as these dementors? I looked at her, and even though she was pretending to be cool with the snake, I know Lunetta, she was totally creeped out by it. The snake wrapped itself around the piano leg about 3 times, and then Matter Mike put his hands up and said, "Shh, shh, everybody quiet, here goes." The snake stopped moving, then flexed. And as it flexed, we could hear the eggs crunch inside him. "Oh, gross!" The girls wailed. "Oh, dude," the guys all said. Mike and Matt smiled at each other real big and said, "Dinner is served." I tried to act cool about the snake, but the truth is, I started having bad dreams about the thing swallowing eggs, and Reg, and Cat, and me. Then the real-life nightmare began. One morning, about 2 weeks after the boa show in Skylar's garage, Julie appears on our doorstep. And what's she got in her hands? A half carton of eggs. She bounces around like it's Christmas, saying, "Hiya, Bryce. Remember Abby and Bonnie and Clyde and Dexter, Eunice and Florence?" I just stared at her. Somehow I remembered Santa's reindeer a little different than that. You know, my chickens? The ones I hatched for the science fair last year? Oh, right. How could I forget? They're laying eggs. She pushed the carton into my hands. "Here, take this. They're for you. They're for you and your family." "Oh, thanks," I said and closed the door. I used to really like eggs, especially scrambled, with bacon or sausage. But even without the little snake incident, I knew that no matter what they did to these eggs, they would taste nothing but foul to me. These eggs came from the chickens that had been the chicks that had hatched from the eggs that had been incubated by Julie Baker for our 5th grade science fair. It was classic Julie. She totally dominated the fair. And get this, her project was all about watching eggs. My friend, there is not a lot of action to report on when you're incubating eggs. You've got your light. You've got your container. You've got some shredded newspaper. And that's it, you're done. Julie, though, managed to write an inch-thick report. Plus, she made diagrams and charts. I'm talking line charts, and bar charts, and pie charts about the activity of eggs. Eggs! She also managed to time the eggs so that they'd hatch the night of the fair. How does a person do that? Here I've got a live action erupting volcano that I've worked pretty stinking hard on. And all anybody cares about is Julie's chicks pecking out of their shells. I even went over to take a look for myself, and I'm being completely objective here. It was boring. They pecked for about 5 seconds, then just lay there for 5 minutes. I got to hear Julie jabber away to the judges too. She had a pointer. Can you believe that? Not a pencil, an actually retractable pointer. So she could reach across her incubator and tap on this chart or that diagram as she explained the excitement of watching eggs grow for 21 days. The only thing she could have done to be more overboard was put on a chicken costume. And buddy, I'm convinced, if she had thought of it, she would have done it. But hey, I was over it. It was just Julie being Julie, right? But all of a sudden, there I am a year later, holding a carton of homegrown eggs. And I'm having a hard time not getting annoyed all over again about her stupid blue ribbon project when my mother leans out from the hallway and says, "Who was that, honey? What have you got there, eggs?" I could tell by the look on her face that she was hot to scramble. "Yeah," I said, and handed them to her. "But I'm having cereal." She opened the carton, then closed it with a smile. "How nice," she said. "Who brought them over?" "Julie, she grew them." "Grew them?" "Well, her chickens did." "Oh!" Her smile started failing as she opened the carton again. "Is that so? I didn't know she had chickens. Remember, you and Dad spent an hour watching them hatch at last year's science fair?" "Well, how do we know they're not chicks inside these eggs?" I shrugged. "Like I said, I'm having cereal." We all had cereal. But what he talked about were eggs. My dad thought they'd be just fine. He'd had farm fresh eggs when he was a kid and said they were delicious. My mother, though, couldn't get past the idea that she might be cracking open a dead chick. And pretty soon discussion turned to the role of the rooster, something me and my Cheerios could have done without.